Hey guys, what's going on? Megan here. All right, school Q&As, answering your questions for my school community. All right, let's see, look at the poll results. All right, over half of you guys want high T for the mental benefits as opposed to the physical benefits, and I agree. The mental benefits of high testosterone are extremely underrated. In my opinion, they're more important than the physical benefits. All right, next, let's go. Brandon, how important is being in a caloric surplus or at least a maintenance for boosting androgen receptors? If you are not, let's see, because I want to make sure that I check all boxes here. If you're extremely lean, then it's very important, right? Because then you're not gonna have enough leptin, which, believe it or not, you need some leptin, right? Even though it comes from fat cells, um, to upregulate T and DHT, which obviously are gonna increase androgen receptors. So if you're extremely lean, then yeah, it's very important. If you, like most people, are around 10 to 20% body fat, then it's not as important. And obviously, if you 20% body fat or more, then you actually want to be in a fucking deficit, right? So for boosting androgen receptors, it depends on what body fat percentage you. In fact, yeah, Ryan Rekmani answered. Yeah, he said the exact same thing. Depends on factors like your body fat percentage, blah blah blah. Yep, correct. Hopefully that answers your question, right? If you're extremely lean, it's important. If you 15 to 20% body fat or more, then it's not as important. All right, next, Nate Sack. Are the 10 testosterone commandments same for boosting DHT and androgens, or would you change something? Uh, Number two, hypothetically, can a motherfucker be high T, high competence in sex, but have shit diet and sleep? Three, which one is most important for? All right, let me answer one question at a time because you get 5 questions. Number one, are the 10 T commandments the same for boosting DHT and androgens? Yes, yes. The number one goal of the 10 T commandments is to obviously activate androgen receptors, right? That's why we want to boost testosterone. It's not just for testosterone. Part of it is to convert to enough estrogen, but most people have enough estrogen. Trust me. In fact, we have too many. We have too much estradiol, right? The main estrogen. So the main purpose of the 10 commandments is really to increase androgen receptor activity, right? We're not trying to increase testosterone for the sake of testosterone. Testosterone by itself is fucking useless without the androgen receptor. Okay, so if you're trying to increase androgen receptor signaling, well, what is the strongest hormone that activates the androgen receptor the most? It's DHT. So that's why I keep saying the 10 T commandments are really the 10 DHT commandments, which are really the 10 androgen receptor signaling commandments. It's just for marketing and SEO, search engine optimization. I have to say testosterone, 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 because it's what most people know. Most people do not know about the androgen receptor or dihydrotestosterone, apart from fucking hair loss and prostate cancer, right? So yes. Now, of course, if I wanted to hyper focus on DHT, the only thing I would do to the 10 commandments is obviously I would say don't block DHT, right? Don't take fucking finasteride, or dutasteride and stuff like that. And the other thing I would change is the importance, right, of each commandment. For example, for DHT, body fat is extremely important, right? Being lean. So if I want to maximize DHT, being lean is crucial. Obviously, it's crucial for testosterone as well, but more so for DHT. Another thing I would change is carbs, right? You gotta eat a high carb diet if you want high DHT, for multiple reasons, right? Not just to increase free T, which is what converts to DHT, but also to increase the activity of, you know, um, the whole 5 alpha reductase and NADPH interactions. So, long story short, carbs would be more important. Losing body fat would be extremely important. Second question is, can a motherfucker be high T but have shit diet and sleep? Not for too long. Not for too long. Short term, yes. Short term, you could find a way to be high T with bad diet and sleep. Like short term, as in like a few days. But eventually, it's gonna catch up because eventually cortisol is gonna go too high. And even though your T will be high on paper, like on the blood work, your cortisol will negate a lot of the effects of that high T. So yes, short term, you can be high T with bad diet and sleep. But like I said, it's very short lived. Very short lived, right? That's why I get mad when people say, "Oh, look, my T level's 1,000." It's just, yeah, it's only that one fucking day, on that one, blood work, right? 2 days later, it's probably 300. We see it all the time. But what influencers do to scam you guys is they do their blood work, they wait until they get the highest reading, and then they post, they go, "Oh, look, my T levels are this," to try to make it seem like the T levels are always that high. Because I've been doing this for so fucking long. I could do the exact same thing. I could wait until my T levels are over 1,000, do the blood work, and show it to you guys and be like, "Oh, look, see, look, I'm high T." deep inside, I know I'm lying to you guys because it fluctuates. There are times when I'm super high, there are times when I'm super low, right? Depends on what I'm doing, if I'm around attractive women, if I'm sleeping well, right? So any moron who tells you, my T levels are 600, my T levels are 1,000, they're fucking clueless or they're lying to you. Testosterone is the hormone. It constantly fluctuates. In fact, that's why they tell you, do your blood work in the morning. Why? It's because throughout the day, that motherfucker fluctuates so much. So no one has constant high T. No one, unless the person is doing the exact same thing every single day, which nobody is, right? You can literally walk down the street and see a high bitch and your T levels will go up by like 40%, right? Are you gonna see this every time? The only people that are chronically high T are people that are on TRT because it keeps the levels at that range all the fucking time until the next injection, of course. All right, next you say, which one is most important, or which one would you rather have? Most sensitive androgens, T or DHT or something else? What? What? Which one is most important, or which one would you rather have most sensitive / highest? Androgens, T or DHT or something else? Well, T and DHT are androgens. Or are you referring to androgen receptors? If you're referring to androgen receptors, I would rather have super high androgen receptor sensitivity and density because then I could have super low testosterone levels in the blood and be high T than a motherfucker, right? So if I could pick one thing, it would be very sensitive and also very dense androgen receptors per area in the cells, right? Because then I could be 300 nanogram per deciliter total T and be more high T than somebody who's less than 1,000, right? Next is there any gatekeeping T trick you hiding, or is it really about the basics? Trust me, I wish I was, hiding some secret. Think about it. My job, my ikigai, right? My purpose, my mission is to help men, right? To help men become the best version of themselves, mentally, physically, to boost the triple S score, to overcome their demons, right? My job is to be the mentor I never had. So if I'm a slave to that mission, why would I gatekeep? Why would I hide some fucking tricks? That defeats the whole purpose. That means I'm wasting my time, right? Because I measure my success based on the amount of men I help, transform, right? So if I'm hiding secrets, then how am I how am I winning? You know what I mean? The more you guys say, hey, look, Megan, I was able to overcome depression. I was able to build a nice physique. I was able to lose fat. I was able to do this based on your advice. The more I'm like, okay, this is how I measure my success. That's why I don't use money to measure my success, because I could just scam you and lie to you and make more money. But would that be success based on what my ikigai is? Of course not, right? I could be trading stocks right now. I make a ton more money than these fuck ass videos. But would I see that as success? No, because my number one mission is this, right? Helping men. So, no, I tell you guys everything. That's why I get so frustrated when you guys keep falling for scams and deviating from the basics. Because I'm like, oh my God, you're going backwards. You're going backwards. So, unfortunately, it's the basics. Training hard, eating, as close as possible to the optimal warrior hunter gatherer diet, right? And obviously managing stress, both the good stress, which is competition and women and all that stuff, and the bad stress, managing the bad stress, which is keeping cortisol low, lowering stress, lowering inflammation, avoiding junk foods. The basics, man, right? The 10 testosterone commandments boil down to the 3 basics: diet, training, and stress management. Next, most underrated T tips. I would say, again, women and competition. Those are the 2 most underrated T tips. And if I have to add a third one, I would say exercise, moving a lot, right? People think when I say exercise, people think I'm just talking about lifting weights. No. I'm talking about everything, like lifting weights, doing running, HIIT, boxing, constant movement. Those 3 things are some of the most underrated, right? Competition, right, with rival males, women being around attractive women in real life, not fucking porn or whatever, or IG thoughts, none of that, and constantly moving. Right. Another underrated T tip is sweets, right? Carbs. Eating a fucking high carb diet. Most of you motherfuckers should be eating at least 400 grams of carbs, if not 600. Right. So yeah, those are some of the most underrated T tips. Next you have, and this is from Nate. Next you have Ryan. Rekmani, probably Middle Eastern. Middle Eastern or South Asia, but could be wrong. 6'3", damn nigga, 6'3". Leave some for the rest of us. 202 pounds, 10 to 12% body fat, FMI around 22. Okay, not bad. University student, I work late nights but feel great getting up at 6 a.m. with the sun. Nice. And getting after the day, mad productive, gorilla emoji. Sacrifice sleep and make up for it with naps and sleeping earlier on days off or sleeping. Let's see. I would not sacrifice sleep simply because it's the foundation of so many things, right? So I would not sacrifice sleep. The only time I would tell a person who sacrifice sleep is for cheeks. If you got to go out at 1 a.m. to go clap somebody's cheeks or whatever. So either for cheeks or to try to reset your circadian rhythm, right? If your sleep pattern is fucked up, then that's the only time I recommend you to, let's say you go to bed at 2 a.m., right? I would tell you go to bed at 2 a.m., wake up at 6 a.m., you're going to feel like shit, get some coffee to, push you through the day, and then go to bed, right, that new day at 8 to 10 p.m. That's the only time, off the top of my head, I would tell someone to sacrifice sleep, to clap cheeks or to reset your sleep pattern. Next, you say also notice if I eat after a late shift, I may fall asleep faster, but my digestion gets thrown off. Should I just stop my eating window around 9 p.m., even if I'm going to bed at midnight? Yeah, guys, you do not want to eat a big meal, within the 2-hour window, right, when you're about to go to bed. So if you're going to bed at 10 p.m., your last meal, if it's a big meal, should be done, meaning your last fucking bite should be done before 8 p.m., right? Mainly because digestion will mess up your sleep. Even if you do fall asleep, the sleep quality will be trash, your REM sleep will be trash, and that's when you're getting the growth hormone, the testosterone, the LH, all that stuff, right? Because your body, think about it, your body temperature needs to come down for you to enter deep sleep, and that's not going to happen if you're digesting. It's the opposite. Your body temperature is going to be through the roof, your heart rate is going to be through the roof, so even if you sleep, you're not going to get the recovery benefits of sleeping. Remember, it's not about sleeping, it's about what sleeping does for you, which is maximize recovery. So if your sleep quality is garbage and you don't maximize recovery, what's the point of your eyes being closed? Now you're just wasting time. Hopefully that answers your question. Next we have my nigga Andy. Will the gradual optimization of hormones offset the negative side effects of cutting for too long? I'm trying to do a 300 calorie deficit, and it is going to take some time to reach my goal body fat percentage. Yeah, as long as you obviously do it correctly and you have refeeds throughout the week, to make sure that your leptin and your thyroid hormones don't get thrown out of whack, you'll be fine, right? The gradual optimization of hormones, yes, they will offset a lot of the negatives of cutting. It depends on how fat you are too, right? If your body fat percentage is low, right, around 10 to 12%, then being in that deficit for too long is actually going to be, it's going to come with more cons than pros. But the closer you are to 20% body fat or more, the more benefits you're getting from cutting, Even me, I'm trying to cut, right? Because, you feel a lot better when you're in a 10 to 15% body fat. Next, why is TRT a scam? Well, again, you guys know the answer. It's coming. It depends, right? There are some men out there who need TRT, who need to be on TRT, who need to be on fucking Primo and fucking Anavar, right? On more than TRT, right? And I told you guys what those men are, the big three, right? Somebody who is in a medical condition, has a medical condition or situation or accident, meaning testicular cancer or, fucking AIDS, right? Or whatever, something that makes it so that it is impossible for them to effectively or efficiently boost it. They need to be on, PDs. The second group I told you guys is people who are in life or death jobs, like the military, police, jobs where your performance, where your physical and mental performance is mandatory for you to do your job, or, if the life or death of somebody else depends on you, right? You need to be optimized. Shit, I think some doctors and surgeons need to be on TLT, right? The moment it's a matter of life or death, I throw that whole honor, glory shit out the window, right? Because that's the main reason why I'm against TLT and PEDs, right? For myself, is because I love competition and I like things to be fair. I don't want to mock somebody and find out, oh, I'm mocking you because I'm on fucking 500 milligrams of tea, which is not THT, by the way. Um, I believe I believe in competition, right? Fair competition. Um, but when life and death is on the line, fuck that. Everybody should be roided, right? So that's why I believe firefighters, not only their life is on the line, but also the life of the people they're trying to save. In that case, they should be enhanced like a motherfucker with obviously medical supervision, right, to mitigate the side effects. So again, first group is people that are in medical shit storms, right? Where they can't produce tea naturally. Second group is people that are in life and death scenarios, whether it's their life or the life of somebody else. Depends on their performance. And then the third one, right? Like I always say, is military, right? Athletes. Oh, sorry, yeah, athletes. Athletes. I think athletes should be roided, and I already explained why. Because the advantage that you give up if your opponent is on roids and you're not, oh my goodness, it is so large that we might as well get rid of sports. You know, so those three groups of people, in my opinion, should be enhanced: medical situations, life or death scenarios, and obviously athletes, right? And obviously military falls into the whole life or death and athlete thing if you think about it, right? If you're in the military, you're an athlete. You're a tactical athlete. Yeah. Apart from that, I don't think people should be on TLT, man. But again, right? That's just my opinion. I'm a nobody. And I already told you guys, right? If it wasn't for my stupid pride, I would be roided to the gills because there's so many benefits of being on TLT or, um, you know, other testosterone derivatives, the DHT derivatives. So many benefits compared to the downsides, right? Because the downsides are easy to mitigate if you know what you're doing and you have a good doctor. By the way, this is not recommendation for people to hop on roids. YouTube don't cancel me, right? This is just, my opinion. Um, and it's also the facts. But there's a lot of benefit. The only reason why I'm not on is, like I said, my stubborn pride, right? That stubborn Vegeta pride. But I wish in a different universe I did not have that pride and that ego, because then I will hop on. I will hop on. Then I don't have to worry about sleep as much. I don't have to worry about fucking micronutrients and plastics and cortisol. I won't have to worry about any of that shit. I'll be able to just wake up, smash the gym, work on my business, skip meals. Think about it. People that are on TRT or roids in general, they don't have to worry about any of that stuff, bro. They could skip meals. They could sleep 3 hours, whatever. Wake up the next day, do blood work. Oh, look, 2,000 nanogram per deciliter total T. you know, Fucking 30 nanogram per deciliter free T, which is 300 picogram per milliliter or more, right? DHT through the roof. Insane. Um, Next, best, and that's also why I believe that athletes should be on the juice because imagine competing against somebody who has that physiology. It's not fair. Next, best books on hormone function and health. There's no best books on that. There's just none. You should learn from as many sources as possible. Next, Alcatraz warfare. And by the way, that previous question was from Kane Sweeney. It's the same one who asked the TLT question. All right, Alcatraz warfare. Is it bad for DHT to go to sleep at 1 to 2 a.m. every night if you start getting 9 hours of sleep every night? Yes, guys. Obviously, it's better to get your total sleep than none at all. But if you sleep outside of that 10 to 6 a.m. window, the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. window, your circadian rhythm is going to be off. And that has an effect eventually on cortisol, on dopamine, and eventually on testosterone. Now, your body will try to adapt, as always. The body's always looking for homeostasis. It will try to adapt to it, but it still comes with negative health outcomes further down the line. In fact, there's some studies on that for shift workers who's still getting plenty of sleep, but because their circadian rhythm is all fucked up, they're getting a lot of issues. Right? You could get insulin resistance issues. You could have an overactive adrenals, super high cortisol. Depending on your genetics, you're gonna get different side effects. But yes, it's not a good idea to sleep significantly outside of that perfect window that we evolved for millions of years to sleep in. 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's that golden window. Next, Victor responded to you and said the time you sleep at doesn't matter as long as you get enough quality sleep. Nope, that's not true, unfortunately. Next, does competing with girls give the same testosterone benefit as normal competition against men. No, it does not. It does not. Unless, again, somehow that competition drastically affects your social status, right? Remember, like I always say, the benefit of competition on social status is mainly, on testosterone, is mainly because of how it affects your social status. So if you're competing with a man and it does not affect your social status, you're not going to get a T response. If you're competing with a woman and it does affect your social status, you will get a T response. It's all about social status. That's how the amygdala and the hypothalamus modulate the competition induced increase in testosterone. That's the reason why in a lot of studies, people that compete with their friends on things that are like playful, where it's not really like a status stuff, they don't get a boost in T. But when they compete with their friends on something that impacts their ranking in a social hierarchy, then yeah, they get an increase in T. Next, from Juan Ginansaka, yeah, I can't pronounce her name. How can I see my hormone imbalances without the blood test? Just stuff you can do at home or it's cheap. Yeah, I made a lot of videos on that. You can look at your hand grip strength. You could look at your morning wood frequency. You could look at your motivation to work hard. Testosterone increases the motivation to push hard for status. So if you don't feel like going to the gym, you don't feel like making money, you don't feel like starting a business, you don't feel like getting your 10 to 20,000 steps a day, yeah, all of those are more in fact, those are more accurate than the blood test. Guys, the blood test is one of the worst ways to measure testosterone signaling. I repeat, a blood test is one of the worst ways. It's not useless. Don't get me wrong, it's not useless, right? But it's one of the worst ways. Why? Because it only shows you your your serum levels of the hormone. It doesn't show you if the hormone is actually doing what you want it to do. It's like going to a type 2 diabetic and trying to measure his insulin activity by looking at his insulin levels, right? You're going to see super high insulin levels. Meanwhile, it's actually the opposite inside of his body, right? The insulin levels are high, but they're not actually working. See? So that's why looking at just T levels in isolation is one of the worst things you could do. Now, it's not useless because if you look at blood levels and then you combine that with symptoms and signs, and then you also look at a more complete blood work, so not just T but also free T and cortisol and all these other things, DHT, prolactin. Yeah, now that paints a clearer picture. But at the end of the day, if I had to pick between blood work and actual symptoms, actual signs like grip strength, morning wood, crazy high sex drive, crazy high confidence, to the point of delusion, whatever, I would pick that any day. Because remember, that's the goal of high T. We don't want high T just to be like, look, I have high T in my blood, right? We want high T because you want what high T does. So what's more accurate? The things that high T does, which is what I listed earlier, or high T in your blood? See? Clearly, it's the signs and symptoms. Next, Huzaifa Khan. I'm 18, 5'8". My training routine looks like this. I do your HSP centurion workout, and on the alternate days, Tuesday and Thursday, I do HIT sessions. What do you think? Is this routine optimal for increasing ARs and boosting DHT and T? Yes, that's good. Optimal depends on the person, right? Depends on your limitations and what else you're doing with your life. None of my clients have the exact same protocol because I customize it based on their life. But the best way to know something's working is, once again, look at your KPIs. Are your KPIs trending in the right direction? Is your hand grip strength going up over time? Is your resting heart rate going down over time? Is your VO2 max increasing over time? Is your fasted blood sugar going down over time, right? If your KPIs are heading in the right direction, I don't care if you're doing the complete opposite of the 10 T commandments. I will tell you to keep doing it. Because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, the signs and the symptoms matter more than anything else. That is my religion. I'm results driven, right? As long as the results are obviously attained in a sustainable way. Next, internet user. Height 5'11", morning weight 181 pounds, body fat 16 to 17%. I can see some outline of my abs in the mirror. Okay, good. How important is post-workout spike in testosterone? Many fitness influencers say it is only acute and irrelevant for hypertrophy. They are fucking morons, by the way. But back to what you were saying. Are there studies on this? Does pump training produce a greater spike in NAS compared to stretch and heavy training? Okay, whoa. Slow down. First, guys, I'm not saying this to just be a dick. Most fitness influencers are clueless about testosterone. I repeat, they are all they know is the base level shit, right? They skim abstracts, they read one or two studies. I've been doing this for too long. I could make a separate channel just debunking what all of these clown quote unquote experts say about testosterone. And that's what they enhance. That's why they enhance, because they cannot optimize testosterone naturally, so they had to inject the bitch. And you guys think they will give you advice on natural? It's funny when I see an enhanced person making videos on natural testosterone optimization. And I'm like, bitch, if you could do it naturally, why would you hop on roids? Think about it, guys. They are clueless about natural testosterone optimization. They're fucking clueless, right? And unfortunately, they get the most views, have the biggest channels. Why? Because the world is full of morons who just look at, oh, look, this person has a great physique. He must know what he's talking about. See, that's how the world works. In fact, that's why these influencers couldn't grow their following the natural route, so they had to hop on roids to then grow their following, right? Because they know that people, you know, base your information based on your physique, which is so dumb, right? I would listen to, fucking Phil Jackson, right? When it comes to basketball strategy, I'm going to Phil Jackson. Most people would say, well, I'd rather go to Shaq, or I'd rather go to LeBron. I'm like, really? I'm going for the coach. The coach looks like he can't even play anymore, right? In fact, most coaches, can barely play, but they are so fucking smart and have such a deep understanding of the game, right? I would go to Bill Belichick if I want to master, quarterbacking or defense strategies, or I want to understand coverages. I'm not going to Dak Prescott. I'm not going to, even Patrick Mahomes is a GOAT. I'm not going to him. I might go to Brady, though. I might go to Brady. That's a little exception. But yeah, So people that know something very, very deeply, usually you can't tell it just by looking at them. So, yeah, to answer your question, a lot of these guys are so, and I can show you the studies. I made so many posts. I put the studies, I included the sources. Post-workout spike in testosterone is important. And I explain why. It's because it upregulates the androgen receptor. And the androgen receptor is the main predictor, as far as the things that we can measure quickly, on how fast you're going to build muscle. That's why myonuclei are important. That's why satellite cells are important, because the more those you have, the more androgen receptors you have. That's why men are bigger than women, even if they're trained the exact same way. It's all about androgen receptor activity. The androgen receptor is what increases follistatin and lowers myostatin, the net effect that is. It also helps with IGF-1 signaling. I mean, the androgen receptor is the GOAT, right? And the post-workout spike, in fact, we have studies where if you reduce people's testosterone and you make them do the exact same training program, right, guess what happens? They have worse gains, even though they did the exact same training program, right? We need to activate the androgen receptor. In fact, look it up. There are so many studies. Just go online and type PubMed, androgen receptor, predictor, hypertrophy, whatever. There are so many studies that confirm that the androgen receptor is at literally it's a vanguard. It's right there, paramount for muscle hypertrophy. If you look at hyper responders and low responders from training, people that blow up on, from resistance training, and people that barely put on any muscle, one of the biggest predictors is androgen receptor activation. Well, think about it. What increases androgen receptor activation? Testosterone and DHT spikes, right? They prolong the half-life of the androgen receptor, in addition to actually making it bind to DNA and increase the transcription of hypertrophy genes. So again, I'm not trying to go into the details too much, but yeah, anyone who tells, in fact, there's a study that I showed multiple times that even looked into this. This very question you're asking, they looked into it. They looked at, if you look at the androgen receptor activation after training, right, and then you look at hypertrophy responses, you could plot a line, right? So not only we know the causation, but we also know the correlation. So yes, the post-workout spike in testosterone matters. The reason why in some studies you will see that the post-workout spike in testosterone doesn't do much, because they're not looking at the androgen receptor activation. They're not looking at the T to C ratio. They're not looking at cortisol. They're not looking at DHT, right? There's a lot of bad studies out there that only look at testosterone levels in the blood, which is useless, like I said a million times, if you don't look at the big picture, which is how much of that testosterone is free, how much of it is actually activating the androgen receptor, and how much cortisol activity is also in the picture, because that will also negate a lot of the effects of T. See? But again, most of these fitness influencers are fucking clueless about that. All right, next you said, are there studies on this? Yeah, I already answered that. Does pump training produce a greater acute spike in NAS compared to stretch and heavy training? So it's not really obviously all else equal, yeah, right. But the main thing is the volume, right? The volume of work, right? So if you do pump training but it's low volume, and you do heavy and stretch but it's high volume, then obviously you're gonna get more T with the heavy and stretch, right? It's mainly if you look at the studies that look at the acute spike in T, it's mainly the volume, the size of the muscle that you use. Meaning, if you did biceps compared to legs, huge difference in testosterone spike. Like I said, the volume. So if you did 1 set compared to 5 sets, obviously more volume is better. And also the lactate production. Pretty much how hard the workout was, right? How much metabolic work did you do? That's going to lead to the greatest increases in T, and also androgen receptor signaling. And sure enough, it also leads to the greatest increases in myonuclei and satellite cells, which are hands down mandatory for growing past the usual, you know, limit. Just look up myonuclear domain theory and stuff like that. Next, 4 grams of carnitine daily. You think is worth supplementing if you don't eat enough red meat? If you don't eat enough red meat, then yeah, you gotta get carnitine because carnitine is goaded. And this is from Arc Fisted. Next, I'm not gonna pronounce your name, bro. What is that? Des Leandri Ephraim. Anyway, 5'6", 110 pounds, body fat 15%. I'm a beginner. Okay. Do arm wrestling gives you the same amount of net androgen status increase as fighting / MMA does, or is it not? Trying to avoid CTE. Any competition for status will increase your testosterone. Doesn't matter if it's arm wrestling. Doesn't matter if it's sparring. Doesn't matter if it's, video games. Anytime you're competing for status, your T levels will increase. Next, let's see. Holy Wrath. In your T guide, you said here are the top vitamins and minerals that you cannot afford to be deficient in by day's end. The tone seemed pretty literal, so I wondered if it was actually literal, and we absolutely must get all of them daily. Or is it just a figure of speech? And for example, we can occasionally hit only 80% of them without consequences. No, this is actually literal. Yeah, you cannot be deficient in micronutrients. With fat soluble vitamins, there's a slight exception because they're fat soluble, they stay in your system for a long time. Like vitamin D, like let's say you get 30K of vitamin D on Monday, right? And then you don't get any on Tuesday, you be fine, right? Because a lot of it's still gonna be in your system. But with water soluble nutrients, no, you pee them bitches out. So you need those daily. Now you're not gonna like fucking get crippled overnight because you didn't get enough zinc or enough B vitamins, but it will slow down processes, and over time you will notice the difference. If you do that consistently, over time it's gonna catch up to you. So do not be deficient in any other key micronutrients. Fat soluble ones, you can get away with it, but I don't recommend it because you might make it a habit, right? But water soluble ones, yeah, you need those. Especially the ones that regulate inflammation. Oh my God, yeah. Just one day where you low on those, you fucked. Next from Assad, not really a boosting question, but I remember you said how powerful DHT is. People say DHT causes hair loss and that vegeta hairline later on. What can I do as a 20-year-old to maybe prevent hair loss in the future? Next question is, I know some dumbasses online say to hop on finasteride, but why the fuck would you want to study DHT production? What really causes hair loss? Okay, so let me answer your question one at a time. First, you said people say DHT causes hair loss and that vegeta hairline later on. What can I do as a 20-year-old to prevent hair loss in the future? Okay, so yeah, obviously DHT plays a huge role in hair loss, right? No one's going to deny that. But people forget, like morons, that it's not just DHT. If you want to be technical, it's the fucking androgen receptor. So this is why this whole logic of DHT is bad because it causes hair loss is so dumb, is because the reason why DHT, right, causes androgenic alopecia, remember it's called androgenic alopecia, right? Because of androgens, the androgen receptor. See? If you block the androgen receptor, you do not get hair loss, right? You do not get androgenic alopecia, no matter how high your DHT is. Think about that. It's the androgen receptor combined with the shitty genes and some lifestyle factors that leads to androgenic alopecia. The reason why DHT is obviously, gets the biggest the lion's share of the blame is because guess what? DHT is the most potent what? Most potent ligand of the androgen receptor. See? So everyone is making it seem like, oh look, it's DHT, it's DHT, it's DHT, it's DHT. If you want to be technical, then you might as well say that the androgen receptor is garbage, right? We might as well say the androgen receptor is evil, right? The reason why DHT leads to hair loss, if you have the genes for it, is because DHT is that fucking powerful at activating the androgen receptor. It is the androgen receptor, right? Combined with, obviously, if you have the genes for it, that leads to androgenic alopecia. That's why you could block a person's DHT, but then if you somehow give them, a DHT derivative drug, a DHT derivative steroid, right? You give them primobolan, you give them masteron, you give them fucking Superdrol or whatever. Eventually, right? If they have the genes for it, I have to keep saying that, they're gonna get alopecia, androgenic alopecia. See, so it's very nuanced, right? So we can't blame DHT for hair loss, but when it's just doing its job, it's just activating the androgen receptor. You just happen to have genes that predispose us to hair loss, combined with some lifestyle factors as well. Also, you have to keep in mind that it's a whole like cascade of events that lead to hair loss, right? It's not just DHT, because like I always say, you have the highest increase in DHT when you go through puberty, right? For years too. How come boys from the age of, let's say, some people start puberty as early as 11 or 10. So let's say from 10 to 17 or 10 to 15. Let's use 10 to 15. How come we don't look outside and see every fucking boy from the age of 10 to 15 just lose their hair like crazy? Think about it. That's when you have the most DHT area under the curve. See, so it's more than just DHT. It's even more than just the androgen receptor. It's a combination of multiple factors. It's just DHT is fucking, the strongest activator of the AR. Let's see, what can I do? And keep in mind, remember, right? You can't blame DHT for increasing androgen receptor activation in your fucking scalp, but then be happy that you got a fucking penis. Pick one, because the same DHT that is very potent at increasing AR activation in your scalp is also the same DHT that is very potent at giving you a penis when you're fucking born. Read my post and look at the studies. What happens when people don't have enough DHT when they're born, right? You're born with a vagina, right? Or a combination of a vagina and a small micropenis, despite having normal levels of T. So pick one, right? You can't go DHT a bad guy because it fucked up your hairline, which eventually all of us are gonna lose our hair. I don't give a fuck. I'm already balding, right? I know it's gonna happen since I was younger. I was like, oh shit, not a big deal. Keep it moving, right? So we can't blame DHT for affecting our hair or even our prostate, but then be happy that we have big dicks or that we even have a dick to begin with. Like pick one. Every single hormone in the body, right, has an inverted U curve, where if it's too high because of genetic, predispositions or lifestyle factors, it leads to adverse effects. Every hormone, thyroid hormone, T3, T4, cortisol, fucking estrogen, prolactin, growth hormone. That's like saying IGF-1 is evil because it gives cancer. Think about it. IGF-1, which you will not build muscle without it, and you will not have so many different enzymes in your body without it, is also responsible for cancer. Are we going to say IGF-1 is fucking garbage? People are just idiots, man. Fucking morons. Next, what can I do as a 20-year-old to prevent hair loss in the future? I mean, apart from finasteride and dutasteride, and this is where I have to be objective, there's not much else you could do. If you have the genes for hair loss, right, there's not much you could do. You're going to lose your fucking hair. The only thing you could do is either block DHT with finasteride or dutasteride, and then that's Russian roulette. Now you got to deal with the side effects if they come, because some people don't get the side effects, right? I got to be objective. Or that's why I call it Russian roulette, right? Or block the androgen receptor completely, but now you're screwed, right? Because now your sex drive goes down, you get anxiety, hard to put on muscle, whatever. Yeah. If you have the genes for hair loss, you're gonna get hair loss. Stop sweating. Stop sweating it, right? Now you could try to deal with the lifestyle factors. You can make sure your cortisol is not too high, make sure you're not too stressed, make sure your prolactin is balanced. You could try those other things, but really the strongest pathway for androgenic alopecia will be the androgen receptor pathway. Next, Can you go into why you do? Wait, did you ask another question? Uh, I know some dumbasses online say to hop on finasteride, but why the fuck would you want to study DHT? Because they don't know the physiology, and then they're fucking like an ostrich, right? They throw their head in the sand whenever they see all of the fucking evidence that shows the side effects of finasteride. There is so much research, randomized control trials, meta-analysis. Even if you go lower on the hierarchy of evidence, you look at association studies and whatever, all across the hierarchy of evidence, right? From animal studies to cohort studies to association studies, all the way to the best studies, which are obviously randomized control trials and meta-analysis and systemic reviews of randomized control trials. And even if you look at above that, you will see that it is non-negotiable. Blocking DHT, even in adults, comes with a higher risk of low T symptoms despite having high T. Because your T actually goes up when you're on finasteride because less of your T is converted to DHT. So you usually get like a 10 or 20% increase in testosterone. Yet that still comes with a higher risk of low T side effects. Even the company who made Propecia, fucking finasteride and all that stuff, admits it, right? So it's crazy that people just bury their heads in the sand. Higher risk of anxiety, which is a low T symptom. Higher risk of depression, which is a low T symptom. Higher risk of erectile dysfunction, which is a low T symptom. Higher risk of what is it? So I mentioned anxiety. I mentioned depression. Oh yeah, low sex drive, which is a low. See, the studies are so conclusive. Now, to be fair, not everyone gets those, right? Because we're not looking at what else everybody else is doing. We're not looking at the timeline. Some people probably get it in the first few months, first few weeks. Some people probably get it years later. But yeah, the risk is there. DHT is important. If it wasn't, then we wouldn't get those side effects, right? Even your testosterone to estrogen ratio gets screwed up when you block DHT because DHT obviously modulates that. Let's see. Can you go into why you do not recommend HRT, TRT besides having honor? I love that reason. By the way, even though logically it's retarded, yeah. I mean, I said it many times. It's a retarded reason to not hop on TRT. My whole honor bullshit is dumb. It's holding me back. I'll be a lot more successful if I just hopped on fucking TRT and just lied to you motherfuckers, right? I remember you mentioning that some people can get insane results and others can literally die. We just don't hear about the bad stories. Correct. Survivorship bias. We only see the people that got great results. Plenty of friends of mine want to hop on, and I'm trying to tell them no. So I think I already answered this earlier in this video. Did I? I think I did. Yeah. Let me see. Where is it? That's competing with the optimization. Oh, did I answer that in the other video? Because I'm recording a lot of videos today, so I don't fucking know. But yeah, I didn't mention that. So the reason why I don't recommend TRT is simply because of my whole honor bullshit, right? The whole fair competition, But apart from that, TRT is a cheat code, man. And not just TRT, just PEDs in general. They are a cheat code. If it was up to me, if I could just delete this whole stupid honor ego bullshit, I would literally hop on PEDs, But again, I don't recommend it. YouTube, don't ban me, don't cancel me, right? I'm just saying, just speaking my thoughts. All right, what are you actually asking here? Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, I already answered that question. I don't recommend it because most people don't know what they're doing. Most people don't need it, and it blurs the lines between competition and honor. Plenty of friends of mine want to hop on. I'm trying to tell them no. Yeah. I mean, it depends, right? It always depends. Like I said, some people need it, right? If some people fall into the big three, they should hop on. And I told you the big three are medical exemptions, right? People that just cannot produce T naturally because of medical reasons or like some kind of accident, some kind of freak accident. 2, people who are in life or death scenarios where their performance affects either their life or death or somebody else's life or death. And 3, athletes, elite athletes. Next, how can you get your test over 1,000 nanogram per deciliter? Currently doing mTOR reset after 30 days of nuclear overload on triceps. The exercise was body weight bench dips. How can you get your test over 1,000? The 10T commandments. That's the point. And like I always say, over 1,000 nanogram per deciliter is just a marketing term. It's just a marketing term. The number doesn't really matter. What matters is the activation of the androgen receptor and then the downstream effects of that. You could do that with 300 nanogram per deciliter. You could do that with 500. You could do that with 800. And there are some people who can't even do that with 2,000 nanogram per deciliter, right? So the number itself is just a marketing term for beginners and people who don't really know. What really matters is the AL signaling. And how do you do that? The 10 testosterone commandments. That's simple. Next is winning and being confident, most important for utilizing androgen receptors in the brain. So you kind of worded that. By the way, your name is Finian Morgan. Previous guy was Mark Spanos. And before that, it was Alejandro Munoz. Keep forgetting to read your names. Before that was Assad, Holy Wrath, Ephraim. Okay. Yeah, so to answer your questions, yeah, so winning actually increases. So winning, status, threat, challenges, whatever, actually increases androgen receptor activity in the brain. And over time, the more you keep accumulating those wins, you literally rewire your brain. That's why I tell you guys, you got to compete daily. It's funny how I tell you guys what to do and you still look for ways to look for the next shiny thing, right? It's right in front of you. You have to compete daily. The more you win, the more you get an increase in T as you're protecting your status, eventually an increase in DHT because T converts to DHT. That binds to androgen receptor. It increases androgen receptor half-life in the brain. It increases androgen receptor synthesis in the brain, in key regions like your amygdala and stuff like that. And over time, it makes you more confident. It makes you more fearless. It lowers anxiety. You need to win. Man evolved to compete and win. There's no way around it. Next, Victor Hugo Garcia, 5'11", 180 pounds, 20% body fat, beginner. Let me see. I gotta hurry up. Fuck. What would be the most optimal amount of fat to consume while on the cut, assuming animal fats, not from oils? Right now, my macro split is 150 protein, 200 carbs, 70 grams of fats, around 2,000 calories. First of all, your carbs are very low, depending on how active you are, which you should be active. So optimal amount of fat on the cut. Well, because you're on the cut, the optimal amount will be lower, right? Because you gotta have room for carbs and protein. So I would say do not go lower than 20% of your calories from fats, right? Do not go lower than 20% of your calories from fats. So find out whatever calories you eating on your cut, multiply that by 20%, divide that by 9. That's the amount of carbs. That's the amount of fat that you should try to be above. So for 2,000 calories, if we do quick math, 2,000 times 20%, so that's, what's that? Is that 400? Right? 2,000 times 20%, so that's times 1 divided by 5. Yeah. So it's about 400 calories, and you divide it by 9, so, you're going to be somewhere around 40-something or 50-something. Matter of fact, let me just do the math. Let's see, 2,000 times 20% divided by 9. Yeah, 44 grams. And it's kind of low, don't get me wrong, but it's enough to give you, to take care of the essential functions. Can a person get more of the cognitive benefits than the physical ones, depending on their genetics? Absolutely. Or do the benefits come at the same level? Nope. And that's one thing a lot of people get wrong. They think, as long as I hit this amount of testosterone in my blood, I'm going to get all of these benefits at the same level. No, that's not how it works. You could put two people that have the exact same T level, the exact same T signaling, and it would get completely different effects on their facial hair, on their voice, on their prostate cancer risk, on their muscle growth, on their anxiety, because testosterone activates the androgen receptor, which activates what? Genes. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to genes. If you don't have the genes for something, testosterone is useless, right? Or if your genes are not sensitive for a specific trait, what's testosterone going to do? All testosterone does is just turns the volume up or down, right? So if the song is not there, you can turn the volume all you want. You're not going to hear shit. The music has to be playing. Oh, that's a badass fucking analogy. All right, next. And that was from Fabian Arroyo. Next, Tapioca, my nigga. What's your motivation to stay so focused on your health at your age, doing your full body workouts and getting your steps in while also being a dad and managing so many projects in your business? I always tell you guys, it's my motivation comes from my hatred of weakness. It comes from childhood trauma. I'll be straight to the point. I was weak as a child. I was a skinny, fat fucking loser. That was always being physically and mentally abused by his mom and the bullies and whatever, da da da. And I realized that holy fuck, you are so useless in this world if you're weak. You're at the mercy of everybody. You're at the mercy of people who have authority over you. So I decided to go on this quest to be physically and mentally strong. And I've seen how it changed my life, and I see how it changes the life of others. And yeah, even as I get older and as I age, I want to, try my best to stay away from being weak. The moment you're weak, you're at the mercy of the strong. And who wants to live that life? So my motivation is, it comes from multiple things: trauma, hatred, pain, vengeance, also love in a way, because I don't want my kids to suffer. I don't want my son to suffer. So I have to set an example for him when he's older, and my future sons if I get more. You also have the fact that it's my ikigai. I'm trying to help men, and how am I gonna help men if I'm not also in the trenches with them, right? So even though I'm retired from bodybuilding and all the vain shit, I still gotta do the bare minimum. So yeah, so that's my motivation. I hate weakness. I hate weak men, because most of the problems in the world are due to weak men. So now, if you're weak but you're trying to get strong, then I don't hate you, right? If you're a weak man but you're trying to level up, great. And to me, that's not even a weak man, right? It's just a matter of time until eventually he transforms. To me, a real weak man is somebody who's weak and makes excuses for it and chooses to remain weak. Fuck you. Those men are useless, and they're the cause of so many of the evils that are happening in the world. Next, Juan Ginosaka. Man, I struggle with your name every time. Thoughts on the peptide BPC 157? I hate thoughts on questions. Be specific. Anyway, I want to use it to help with my joints that crack and don't feel 100%. Also want to help my gut because I had a childhood eating chips, ice cream, sodas, my daily diet. It's still a habit that gets me sometimes where I eat those types of things. And I love how somebody put at the bottom, a band-aid won't fix this issue. Correct, right? Address the basics. Address the basics. You could talk about peptides once you got the basics dialed the fuck in, and then you just need that next thing to push you over the edge. But if the basics are not done, you are wasting your time trying to hop on any form of PEDs, because you're just gonna keep on doing it. You're gonna keep putting water in a bucket that has holes in it. You know, fix the holes, then add the water. All right. Next, which is better for high T? This is from Huzaifa Khan. Which is better for high T, DHT, and androgen receptor density training for strength or training for hypertrophy? Both, but mainly for hypertrophy. Next, will printing images of attractive girls around your house or room boost teeth and motivate you? Yeah. I mean, this is an honest question. You got Jared over here laughing at you, but yeah, this is an honest question. If it motivates you, do it. Anything that increases your motivation. Motivation is at the foundation of everything, right? Because I could tell you all the T commandments. I could tell you what to do. If you're not motivated, you're not gonna do it. So whatever increases your motivation, do it. Next, how to know if it's your balls or your brain that's causing your testosterone deficiency. Well, one thing, you could do blood work. That's where blood work comes in. Look at your LH, look at your T, look at your estradiol if you can afford it. And if you notice that your T is low and your LH is also low, then clearly there's an issue probably with estradiol. If you notice that your LH is high and your T is low, then you know that's not an LH problem. It's a T problem. It's a testicular problem. But definitely look at LH and FSH and total T. And if you can afford it, look at free T, look at estradiol, look at cortisol, look at prolactin, and then it'll tell you. But usually the LH to T ratio will tell you. If your LH is low, then obviously it's a brain problem or it's an estradiol problem. And if your LH is high, then it's a testicular problem. Next, what do the gold, silver, and bronze tiers of the 10T indicate? So the bronze tiers, it's funny because they're the ones that boost T the fastest, but they're also the ones that are not as mandatory, right? Whereas the S tier, you don't get like a very fast increase in T, right? It kind of take a while, but they're the most mandatory. So for example, S tier, sleep, steak, sweets, right? Those are mandatory, no way around it, right? But it do take a long time to start noticing the effects. Whereas the bronze tier, like, competing for status, you get massive increases in T. Having sex, massive increases in T. Being around attractive women, massive increases in T very fast. But they're not like super, 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 super mandatory. You know what I mean? Very important for max T, but they're not like as important as steak and sweets and sleep. And by the way, for those of you guys who don't know the 10 T commandments, steak doesn't literally mean steak, and sweets doesn't literally mean sweets. It's just a mnemonic. But sleep literally means sleep. All right, next from Bhavjit Singh. All right. Next, that's definitely India. So I want to be the best writer, director in the world. Once I can keep the 10 T commandments consistently, will I eventually have to hop on roids in order to outcompete the top guys? If so, how can I do it safely and hop off of it safely without potentially offing myself? And I'll be perfectly honest with you, if you want to compete with the top guys in the world, all else equal, yes. You will not compete with the top guys if you're natty. There's a reason why all of the top guys, the top 1%, if not top 0.1% in almost every field, whether it's athletes, whether it's CEOs, whether it's fucking podcasters, doesn't matter. There's a reason why almost all of them are either on TRT or more, or peptides or something. You cannot, all else equal, you cannot outcompete these guys if you're natural. I know it sucks. I know no one wants to hear it, but it's the facts. Simply because they can work harder and be less meticulous with their diet and training and still destroy you. See, it's that simple. So that's why I tell every man at least max out your T naturally, because then at least you have a chance, right? Whereas if you low T and you're competing with people who are enhanced, goodbye. Again, all else equal, assuming same IQ, same connections, whatever, all else equal, right? Because clearly you need more than just T to be successful. And as far as how can you hop on once you max, I can't answer that, right? Get a coach, get a doctor, right? Because it depends on so many factors, right? To mitigate the risks. Because different people, even my clients who are enhanced, they get different side effects. Somebody gets gyno, another person gets issues with his HDL, it gets fucking crushed. Another person gets, his fucking prostate cancer risk goes to the roof with his PSA, and yeah, so it's a case by case basis. Next, Aima Oyenguren, what is worse for testosterone, alcohol? I don't like those questions. I really don't. What is worse, alcohol or weed? Stop both, right? Obviously, alcohol, all else equal, alcohol is gonna, have more damages because it's like instant, fucks up your liver, increases inflammation. But eventually, weed is gonna catch up to you as well. The reason I don't like those questions because when I answer, people think it means, oh yeah, okay, in that case, I could just smoke mad weed, right? Even though that's not what I said. People like to straw man the results of those. People like to straw man those answers. So, yes, alcohol is worse, but you shouldn't do either. And that was from Oyen Gurin, right? Next, okay, 2 more questions. Jareth Rose, does boosting test, DHT, etc., make you lose your hair or keep it? Depends on your genetics. Next, how can I practice my social skills to eventually become more confident and start to create social circles to engage in a circle of increased confidence, more social status, and more T in a loop? The best way to practice your social skills is to literally practice your social skills, right? So write down all the different social skills you want to improve. Is it public speaking? Is it, being able to keep a conversation going? Whatever it is, identify what it is, right? And literally practice it. Do it more. Practice just means do it more, right? Do it right and do it more. That's all it means. If you want to get better at public speaking, you don't read books on public speaking. You speak more. You do more public speaking. You want to get better at fucking, I don't know, like keeping conversations going, right, without the awkward silence, then do that more. Keep it simple, guys. All right, that's it, guys. Very long video. Join the SKOOL community before price goes up. Hire me for coaching. Buy the eBooks. I'm out of here.